The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
This is how the birth of Jesus Christ came about. When his mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found with child through the Holy Spirit. Joseph, her husband, since he was a righteous man, yet unwilling to expose her to shame, decided to divorce her quietly. Such was his intention when, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary, your wife, into your home, for it is through the Holy Spirit that this child has been conceived in her. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke, he did as the angel of the Lord had commanded him, and took his wife into his home. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
In the Gospel of Matthew, the birth of Jesus is told from the perspective of Joseph. Joseph and Mary were betrothed, but not yet living together. In the eyes of the law, that meant they were married. And therefore, Mary was in a tough spot. What was perceived as her sin, according to the law, was punishable by being stoned to death. Now, under the Roman authority, they couldn't do that, but she could be publicly shamed. Joseph didn't want her to be shamed, so he decided to divorce her quietly. That was an act of compassion on his part. Through the angel, though, God called Joseph to go much farther. He would play an important role in the life of this child. He would name the child. And naming a child was to claim the child as his own. That action by Joseph made Jesus a part of the family of David. He would be known as a son of David. Been a number of times I've reflected on what Jesus must have learned from Joseph. I mean, in his preaching, Jesus used a lot of images, practical images that people could understand. He talked about building houses, planting seeds, harvesting crops. Maybe Jesus did some of those things with Joseph, or at least talked with him about them. But most of all, I think what Jesus saw in Joseph was a man of love and compassion. Joseph showed love and compassion by welcoming Mary into his home. He showed love and compassion by making Jesus his own son. He must have treated them with love and compassion throughout their lives. Jesus had one command he gave to his followers, to love one another. Maybe he realized that the way he was treated was the way everyone should be treated. It was the way God intended us to live. Jesus saw in Joseph a man of faith and love, a man who was open to God's call and willing to follow that call. That's all he ever asked of his disciples, to be open to God and to be loving in relationships. In our first reading, King Ahaz sounds kind of pious when he says, I won't tempt God. He wasn't pious. He was trying to keep his options open. He didn't know which direction he was going to lead the country. If he specified a sign from God and then got it, he'd be stuck. So he didn't want to change his way. He wouldn't name a sign. When called by God, Joseph went all in. He welcomed Mary into his home and made Jesus his son. He changed his whole life to make that possible. We don't know how God is going to call us. It may be in an unexpected way, or maybe even an unwanted way. As we begin this fourth week of Advent, we are offered Joseph as a model of faithfulness, of openness, and of love. A model for our whole lives. A good model for Peyton as well.